All right, we agree.
All right, well,
Yes.
if y'all are ready, we'll go ahead and open the meeting. Thank y'all for being here today. We've already have taken roll call and we do have some guests with us today. Do y'all want to announce who you are? No?
We're with the library.
Okay.
Amanda Fuller, I'm on the library board.
I'm Courtney Rickier, I'm the director of the Tullahoma Library.
Okay.
Holly Vaughn, the director of Manchester Library.
Okay.
And Crystal Nelson, I'm on the Manchester board.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. If we're okay, we can go ahead and go on to approving the agenda for tonight.
I'll make the motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
All right.
Second by Andy.
Any public comments?
Hey, I just have a couple of questions.
Yeah,
Just
turn
push
that
that
on.
button and make sure that red light is on.
Hello?
You got it.
Okay. This is for that pet policy, whatever. How many just straight up employees bring their pets to work with them? Just regular
3,
employees?
maybe 4.
And does
at
that
the
does that include the elected officials?
Yes.
Is most of them elected officials?
Yes.
Then we need an elected official policy and not an employee policy. I mean, I
We
know
need
that's
both.
tricky.
Huh?
I know that's tricky, but you know, if I don't understand why we're having to have a policy for regular Coffee County employees when they're not the ones.
We have a regular Coffee County employee.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We do have a
well,
regular coffee.
That
County
was
employee.
that was just my questions. Is how many Coffee County employees are bringing their
Have one employee.
pets to work? Because
I think when we get done, we'll probably have that addressed here tonight at some point or another.
yeah, that was
something
just
we're going to be able to think about tonight.
yeah, and that's I thought about that conversation last time, and I was like, well, I'm a little bit uninformed. Maybe I should ask a couple of questions. So that covers it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. All right, we'll just move on to approving the minutes. And I do believe that we need to approve January and February because I failed to
do.
do that last meeting. And I have a copy of both, if anybody.
I got both of them.
You took the minutes for February, didn't you? That looked good.
You did.
I'll make the motion that we approve the February and the January meeting minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Well, then, that puts us into unfinished business and discussing the pet policy.
You want me to start? I've handed you out some information that's pretty well explanatory. I think to nip this completely in the bud is we're going to have to adopt the policies what the state regulates, and only that. There's no need in putting anything more than that on there, and just only allow service animals into county buildings. And at some point or another, they're going to have proof because that's coming down the pipe. What I saw with what legislation is trying to pass right now. So I think if we just post on, I don't want to post the jail because I know what they have a canine dogs, and I don't think we need to post. There's one other place, it slipped my head, but right now I know that I don't think we need to do the jail. That to me is a waste of time. But the other facilities, I think they need to be posted and only have, by state law, service dogs only, or service animals only.
Okay.
I do have a, and I can pass this around if y'all want to look at it, but there is a TCA code saying that, you know, the liability of the owner of the dog, of course, the owner would be liable for any damages. And also there is a bill, this also is a bill, looks like it was passed, where you can actually ask. You know, I know that we had mentioned before that we didn't think we could even ask if they were a service animal or not, but this actually says that you can ask, but you can't, but you have to kind of take their word for it.
And the law that you're referring to is what the state has right now as
Right.
restricting dogs in restaurants.
Exactly.
Yes,
And-
Yes.
yes, food
Yes.
facilities
They
is
have to
what I
be
read, yeah.
service animals to be allowed in the restaurants
Or-
if this goes forward.
Or a fish.
Where,
Fish is in that,
okay.
yeah.
So
Fish
this
is in
is
that. 'cause of
Tennessee
aquariums.
annotated code that you're talking about?
It is being proposed as we speak this week.
But there's none on the board now.
No,
But I don't know if it specifies just public places in general. I think it's more
it's
like
restaurants.
food
Restaurants.
yes,
related.
it
yeah.
is restaurants
Yeah.
only, and they're coming with grocery stores next year.
Next.
Okay.
And then they're
so-
gonna go with next, that
Yes,
next step.
it's
after
coming
that.
in incremental steps from them.
Okay.
Each year, they're gonna grab something else.
Yeah.
So we're talking about public places now. We're not talking about government-specific buildings.
Right. Yeah, public in
Correct.
general, yeah.
If the public can come to that building and have access to that building, that's the buildings they're talking about right now.
Let's see.
And Mr. Hirschman, you're talking about countywide.
Countywide.
I mean, are we supposed to stop people at the dumpsters?
No. It's not in a building.
No, I'm asking. I know if it's county property, it's the same thing.
Well, we can post it. Are we gonna be able to stop them? No.
Well, that's the liability
If-
issue.
Well, the
If somebody-
liability
if
issue,
somebody
yeah.
gets beyond the sign, and, you know, you put all kinds of signs on that door, what's gonna keep you from leaving?
Nothing.
And I, and two,
So we
just
just,
to,
I mean.
Not right now, but right now, we're wide open right now.
so
something
I
to
don't
kind
know.
of think about, there is a difference between service dogs and emotional support dogs.
Yes.
Correct.
I've also, so I
And
think
that's
that,
our-
that
That's
is.
our problem, is that that's our problem.
Yeah, so this right here is, I found this, I was researching it, a little bit, and there's actually 8 courts in Tennessee that has emotional support dogs, but there is a certificate that goes along with that, so they are approved emotional support dogs.
Okay.
And I have no
So-
problem.
And they're
with that.
certified.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's certificates
That's like
involved with it.
Manchester
But
City
it-
has
it's
an
not like
emotional
a-
support
there-
dog.
It's not like a service certificate, it's
Correct.
a different type of certificate.
Yes.
Yeah, the wording's a little bit different.
Okay.
There's no less liability, by the way. You certify,
Correct.
Well, according to this TCA code, I feel like
certify that cub
if
you want to.
it's still the owner's, it's the
Yes, ma'am.
owner's liability
Yeah,
and not the county's.
no, I'll get it.
Yeah. But that's all I have.
So certification doesn't do a lot, is what I'm getting at.
Right now, it doesn't do a lot, no. But, you know, at some point or another, people are going to have to be responsible enough. You know, to me, an elected official, I don't carry my pets to my business or any place that I go with me to work. And I don't think, if you did that out at the base, they would ask you to leave. If you did that at other places, they'd probably ask you to leave. Because I don't know how very many people that carry their pets to work with them.
I will say this, I was at the state capitol Wednesday, and I saw 2 dogs. They were in a service vest. They were deemed as service animals. I don't know, like, you know, I know that we can't ask for, you know, specifics of identification, that kind of thing, but, I mean, they presented themselves as service animals, and I think that's, I mean, you know, if they present themselves as service animals, we have to accept them.
You have to
Yeah,
accept that,
yeah.
exactly.
And that's state law.
That is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
So they were following the state law.
Sure, and
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you could tell they were well trained, very, you know, you could tell.
Now, if
that
they go
were
into a
not-
restaurant, they can actually ask for the papers now,
Sure, right.
the way according to what.
According to what this
going
law,
through.
proposed law is, yes.
So that's proposed though.
Yeah,
It hasn't been passed
Not-
yet, but it
it's
is
coming.
proposed. Okay.
So are you suggesting that we pass a policy according to what the state is allowing for restaurants? Is that,
To be nothing but, service animals right now.
okay.
Commissioner,
If-
you
if-
know,
if-
policies are made.
I don't think it
to
needs to be,
conduct-
yeah.
I'm sorry if
Go
I
ahead.
interrupted. you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Policies are made to be followed, obviously. Now, we are painting with a pretty broad brush. I'm just asking because if we submit a policy, we have to follow it. It strikes me curious about enforcement of the policy. And that's something that I want this committee to really think about who enforces the policy.
Right.
Because if we enforce a policy, then there's liability there. And I just don't know if we can, I mean, this building, our judicial center, you know, I don't know, have we violated a policy, by letting a pet in? I mean, you know, because that's really the liability issue that I've actually researched, and I'm worried. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a Pandora's box, but it's something that has struck me curious since our last meeting.
Mhm.
Because policies are made to be followed,
Yep.
and I don't know who's going to enforce it.
Well, right now, the way I understand it is a restaurant, once this new one passes, somebody tries to bring a animal into a restaurant,
Yes, sir.
the owners of that restaurant can ask for the papers. If
Sure.
they do not produce the papers, they're asked to leave.
Okay.
If they don't leave, then the law enforcement becomes involved.
I know that, but we're not running with respect to you, we're not running a restaurant.
Would
run
we,
a
would we
jail.
be?
We're not running a dog pound either,
We're
or a
running-
cat pound, or
Well,
a snake pound.
I guess
Be
my,
careful, because yes, we are.
Well, right now we are. We can.
well, my question would be, according to that law, if you're a restaurant, you're allowed to ask for papers. Would we, as a public building, as a public facility, be able to ask for papers? Would it also, or are we still restricted
Our
from
sheriff's
asking?
department secures
Yeah,
our office, or our.
right,
our
absolutely,
judicial
yeah,
center.
yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, is that law just for food facilities, or is that for anybody who?
Right now, it's just for the food
Yeah,
facilities.
I think we would have a hard time enforcing that. I mean, we would still, I mean, we could still request service animals only, but to be able to truly enforce that, I think that we would have a hard time to know fully. Because, I mean, and, you know, I've read a lot about it, about, you know, people trying to falsify, you know, or act like they're a service animal or a support animal, and you really not know.
So, I'm sorry, I
No,
didn't mean
go
to cut
ahead,
you off.
yeah.
Andy, I do.
So, if we post the TCA that says service animals only, and someone brings a dog into my office, what's the policy gonna tell me to do?
You probably have to call the sheriff's department,
You can ask
and
them.
they can't vote.
You can ask them to leave, take the dog out. That's your first thing.
But I can't ask them to
If
leave
it
if they
doesn't
say
have
if they say it's a service animal, what liability does that put on me if that animal bites somebody and it comes back not a service animal? Are you asking me?
No,
and my-
if you ask that question, make sure you got a witness is all I can say.
So the
onus-
liability's put on me and my employees to ask that question.
If you have a policy,
If you
right?
have a policy. Well,
But if you don't have a policy, then the responsibility of that animal
It's
belongs
left up
to
to
its
the
owner,
Is on the owner.
the owner by itself.
The owner of the.
It makes no sense.
folks, I don't agree with that. They're gonna hit everybody they can. They'll hit everybody's insurance.
I'm asking the
I
question.
Have
don't
they?
see any, I
No.
don't see any significant issues of liability in public buildings animals biting somebody that is a county, concern. I mean, and we insure for that, by the way, but we insure for people tripping on the sidewalk too. Okay? I mean, we do. We insure for general policies of liability insurance. Now, we can make significant theoretical issues all day long,
Sure.
but now we're creating a policy that probably the greatest part of the liability is gonna go on the sheriff's department. Because I don't know who else, Mr. Farah, or our chairman are gonna call.
I don't even
who
know
else
if you
to
need to call somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, we have spent weeks on this right here.
Yep.
I love my dogs. I love my cats. I love my cows more than I do them. But I do not bring them to my work. And there are people who love their animals probably more than me. But to me, we have spent an exorbitant
much.
amount of our time on this thing on something that ought to be easy to solve. Is animals need to stay at your house. I mean, either way you can go. I feel for the people who love their
appreciate you.
animals.
I appreciate you.
But let me finish.
Go ahead.
There are people who are allergic to animals that come in here. How do they feel? Aren't they being mistreated? If I'm allergic to a dog and I walk in somebody's office and there's dander and there's hair, then I'm being exposed to something I shouldn't be exposed to in a county building, because technically there should be no animals there. That's how I feel about it.
Yes, sir.
And the enforcement of it is, if you're going to be that way and lie about your dog, come on in. I'm not your judge and jury. He's up there. And if you lie about that, that's on you. If you go get a vest and put on Little Fluffy and that's who that is, then that's on you. We shouldn't have to intervene all the time. To me, posting it up there, only service animals allowed, it ought to be to the Joe public is, I'm good enough person in my heart and in my brain. I love Coffee County enough to do the right thing.
So I really think the issue is not necessarily about service animals. It's about employees bringing in. It's about the employees bringing animals to work, more or less.
I think that's where we're at right now, yeah.
Okay, yep.
Okay. And I would advise that there is federal law that honestly, we can make all the policies we want to make, but a service animal is going to get into.
Oh, I understand that. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I think
Like-
when you sit
If you-
back.
I mean, I
and-
think that we
when you
need to
sit back and
probably
hear
decide-
people, it is pets. We have become allowing pets, and I can bring the tomcat in here and he's my pet. But I guess I have enough respect to not bring him in here. I have enough respect for everybody else in my office down there that I would not bring my cat there. To where there's not a litter box, I don't have to take the dog out on my time, take little Foo-Foo for a walk. I guess it just comes down to the respect thing to me is I understand them, love them, walk amongst my cows while they still lay. They know me. But I don't introduce them to other people.
So I don't think the issue is service animals or the
Mm-hmm.
public bringing in animals. It's more or less an issue of employees bringing
Mm-hmm.
animals. And
So there needs to be a policy that the employees obey, that the public doesn't? Are we?
I think it ought to be straight across the board,
It's
anybody.
It's gonna have to be, it's gonna have to be
Are you gonna
across
do the
it.
same thing
yep,
for the public
yep.
as you do for the
You have
employees?
to. You can't do one for other. You have to do
And that's-
both.
Then we backed into
Yeah,
the
now we're back
enforcement.
to
We backed
where
into
we
the
were.
enforcement.
I think you go back to the same thing. If you ain't
Yep.
got enough oomph about you and you won't lie about it, come on in. It's on you.
I know that, but that's our problem. If we put a policy in effect.
If you-
then
yeah, but if I tell
you've
you that's
created
my
a duty.
service cat.
You've created a duty.
I've created, well, and I
Then
ask
somebody's
you,
got- Then somebody's gotta look at Fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's gotta look at Fluffy and make sure that, and who's gonna enforce that?
All you
But
gotta
that-
tell me is, yep, he's a service cat.
But that's the question. Somebody brings one in the bus garage,
Mhm.
a dog, and you ask them, you know, what service does this dog provide? Is it a service animal? They say yes. Now, you let them in, he bites one of your workers. Now, is that liability to you and the county school board because you allowed that animal in that building? Or is it the owner and the handler's responsibility?
Did you ask the insurance company that question?
Said it's the owner's responsibility.
It's the owner's responsibility.
Period.
It's not, all we're doing is creating liability. for the
I'll be
county.
honest.
Yeah, so,
I've had 2 dogs brought on the premises and I had them removed by the people. Told them I didn't want them there. I mean, I may have crossed the line on that. Neither one of them were service dogs. They were pets that parents
I've
brought
talked to
in
I've talked to our insurance.
and asked them to leave because I had children on the premises and and they're not my children. I was afraid those kids could get bit and I asked them to leave.
I know Manchester City Schools now has a dog.
Yeah, and it's a
Emotional-
therapy dog.
They're,
It's a doodle,
right, so
It's a
they have,
poodle doodle or whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah. I'm just.
But it's certified. That dog's certified. I think you can, I don't know. I just think that we're hung in a quagmire with this and we either need to move forward
Well, I
or
think-
remove it completely.
I
and quit
think the
talking
main
about it.
question was, when we left the meeting last time, was, are we liable?
Right.
And so I think we've determined that it is the the owner is liable.
Unless we
For the-
create a policy and violate it.
And then if we create a policy and then we don't enforce that policy, then we're liable for that. And I don't know,
I mean, the law's pretty specific on what we can do, state and federal. The other law is they must be leashed, I believe.
Yeah,
And it
yes,
must
yep,
be
it's
under
right
the
here.
control of the person at all times,
Yep.
even if it is a service animal. So I think the law's very specific on whose responsibility is, and that's my concern. I don't wanna put the burden on the county when we allowed it in the building, yet right now it's on that patron, whoever brings it in.
right.
Jeannie?
I'm sorry.
I'm with Tim. How much time has been wasted on this one little thing when it's elected officials, not your regular staff member? My people don't bring their animals to work. I wouldn't tolerate that. If they're having a vet, you know, and they can't get there 30 minutes, you know, sure, bring your pet in here for a few minutes. But I'm not bringing my pets all day long, and I'm in agreement with Tim. How many minutes and hours here and away, and that, you know, that, and we all know what it is. It's the elected officials who have brought them in, not your regular staff people.
Which elected official right now is bringing a personal pet that is not a service dog or an emotional dog? Who
Well,
is it?
You have
say
a
we know,
judge?
I don't know.
You have a judge.
Okay, who?
Bobby Carter?
Well, okay,
Are
so
those dogs
he
service
brings
dogs?
he brings Gatsby in for visits. He
Yeah.
doesn't stay at the courthouse all day long.
Right.
He comes in for
So he
visits.
does-
He's not there.
Okay.
He's not a disturbance.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
So-
Tim, why can't we just have a sign that says no personal pets?
I want to be careful.
And then how would
with
that-
this Committee,
Bring any liability to somebody?
no, it's liability on the owner of the
Yeah.
pet. But now I wanna be careful about this because, we have a sitting circuit judge who does bring a pet in on aggravating circumstances where there are children involved and.
Well, that would fall under like the jail where they have
Well,
the
I mean, unless-
canines.
Well,
No,
not necessarily,
no,
because
ma'am,
that
no,
is
ma'am.
different. That is
Canine is a
different.
service animal.
Huh?
Ma'am.
The
But
canine
there-
is
there
same as a
are-
service animal.
Yeah,
There
that's what I'm
are-
saying. Would,
Mr.
if he,
Corbett,
if
Judge-
he's bringing
Judge
his
Carter-
dog for
Right, yeah,
therapy
absolutely.
purposes.
Yeah, it's
Judge
that's
Carter
different.
deals with things and juvenile witnesses that are exposed to things that we can't fathom. Okay, we
So
we
there
truly
are-
can't fathom.
There are 8 courts in Tennessee that have these type of dogs that come to court for juvenile court and the Children Advocacy Center, different types.
But
of
we're not
services like
talking
that.
about those kind of dogs.
Can I make a
Right.
motion? I'd like to make a
Can-
motion.
Can I
to
ask a
stri-
question
yeah.
real quick? I'm sorry.
Go
It
ahead.
won't take but just a second. Is the policy strictly to enforce employees of the county?
You can't just do that.
No, I don't think you can.
Can you come up with a policy that says if an employee brings any type of animal to the workplace, they can indemnify the county?
No,
No?
no. What are we gonna indemnify? Honestly, we're governmental.
That it's their
tort liability.
responsibility to.
We are governmental, sorry, my bad.
I'm
No,
asking the
no,
question.
You can't,
Okay.
you can't.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just, you
So they couldn't.
mess up the function of government and the liability associated with conducting governmental business.
So they couldn't sign something saying they're totally responsible for that animal and prove that they have liability insurance to cover if that animal did something?
No.
Okay. That was my question.
My motion is to strike this for 6 months. Let's not bring it up for 6 more months. If we get bit and get sued, that'll be your job. Take care of it.
Well, it's not just being bitten.
Oh, I know
If they
that. I
jump
know.
or lunge at
It-
somebody
it's
and they
just,
fall,
I
then you're
understand.
liable.
We've sit here and back and
Yeah.
forth. This is wrong. We can't do this, that, and all that. So I would like for it to just disappear until we come up with something in 6 months, and this is 3rd month, the 9th of September. Bring it back up in September
And the purpose of bringing it back in 6 months would be what?
to see if there's any kind of thing that's been moved on, and if not, we'll strike it again.
You're
You
talking
mean,
about is the
As
state.
far
State
as
law.
state
States-
legislator
Yeah.
passes a bill.
So that's my motion, if I can get a second. Being that there is none, we'll go
I'm
on.
thinking I'll make a second on it.
Okay, got a motion and a second. We're gonna
Now
vote.
we can have discussion.
Yeah, now we can have discussion. There you go.
no, you know, it's-
There you go, discuss it.
So the legislative session ends here in the next few weeks. So we ought to know here in the next few weeks. But you're saying 6 months?
Mr. Farrer, they can make their mind up for us if they want to. It's the legislature.
Oh, I know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that might,
No.
yeah. That would make our job a little easier if there was more clarity.
Well, we got a motion and a second.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye. Got 3 of us?
Any opposed?
I vote against.
I'll second that.
So that was passed by majority vote.
All right, so moving on to new business. This was on our agenda last month, but we held off so Ms. Shelton could be here with us. So talking about administrative closing policy.
Just revision, the very bottom part
Oh.
is the additional, to just,
Okay.
just been added.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Now I don't have copies.
Here, Terry.
I'm just a guest.
Okay.
Andy, you got one? You got one, Andy?
Yes, sir.
So the very last, paragraph is the additional revisement. county mayor is the only county official authorized to close county offices for emergency or weather per CTAS. No elected official or department head has authority to close their office or deviate from regular office hours once the county mayor has lifted the administrative closing. Employees that are unable to return to work due to the emergency or weather conditions will be required to use accrued leave.
Okay, so my office, I had an issue with this. When we were opened back up on that Thursday and Friday after the snowstorm, I did not have enough staff members to man my office. The road conditions were very hazardous, yet we were open, and this created a very big problem for me. I did communicate with the mayor, so I think, and he gave me the okay to do what I needed to do. So I did, my office was, we had different hours than, because I was basing it off of how many people I could have to actually open my office and function as a whole, because I have 23 employees, I have 5 departments with 3 different courts. I could not function. So I think this was an upset to some of the other administrative offices, but they're not as large as I am. One of my departments is as big as one of their whole offices. So this is where I had a problem. And I think this is where maybe there was some confusion. I did communicate with the mayor. I did have his okay. So my hours posted were a little different than others. So I don't want, I was not trying to go above the mayor or disrespect, his authority or trying to make up my own policies or do my own thing. It was just based off of necessity. So as a department head, the majority, I have 1 male and the rest are women. Most of us, I do drive a 4-wheel drive, all-terrain tires. I live in rural Coffee County. I live on hills. I live on a hill, a very large hill. It was a struggle for me to even come into the office to expect my employees to come into the office. So that is, I don't know. I guess obviously it needs to be discussed. Again, I did not go over the mayor's head. He was very, he was very understandable about my situation. So I don't know what I did was going against the county policy, but I think others may have thought that I did not have approval or whatnot. So I don't know.
Do we need a motion and second so we can discuss this? What do you think?
Sure.
You're just wanting to add this bottom thing to it?
Oh, so that's just.
So
add
we're-
2.
Does that
Because right now,
cover
we
you?
only have these 2.
Does that bottom paragraph cover you,
We
Heather?
discussed this before about,
Jenny,
What-
does the bottom paragraph cover you?
Well, yes, and in a sense, it's just, I
Because
don't-
once you talk to him and he okays it, to me, that's the go.
Yeah, I didn't publicly have anything from the mayor, I guess, saying that I had his approval, but I did have his approval. So I
Okay.
guess, I just kind of wanted to clear the air on that.
And one thing in here I was thinking about is Rennie with Real Solid Waste, when he closes, does that mean that he has to call the mayor, and okay closing of the convenience centers?
The only other thing too that I had, I'm sorry, was because that Friday, because the roads were actually worse than they were that Thursday. That Friday we worked limited hours. My staff, we were in communication the whole time. They did take laptops home. We did work from home. We did get paid from working from home. So, we weren't physically in the office. The full 7.5, but we were working the 7.5. So, we never stopped working. The days that we were off, we were actually working, resetting court dockets and whatnot. So, of course, we didn't get compensated for that, we were just, it was just a day. Like, they didn't get extra compensation for that, but we were working around the clock, even on the days we were closed. And I'm not necessarily asking for that, I'm just kind of wanting to clear the air that I wasn't trying to go out on a limb and make my own rules.
And I think that's
It's
a,
flexible
Yeah.
to include maybe a sentence or something saying, about that, to appeal to the mayor's office and inform him of that
Right.
situation.
Right.
And
I mean,
if you
it
get
was a major
okay,
concern of mine because I was like, I'm not going to be able, I'm
y'all's
not going to have
parking
enough
lot had
people.
not even been cleaned.
No, I mean, they had started working on it that night before. Actually, the sheriff's office started working on it the night before, and it was not, I had to have court officers actually help some of the women in my office to work because they were afraid of slipping, yeah.
And I think you need an administrator, you need one place that needs to make the decision, but also that place is where you go to make the appeal. And like
Yeah.
your case, you worked it out and you made that happen. I
Right.
know my battery keeps going out, so I'm trying to talk very, very loud,
So
so.
I don't know if there needs to be anything in place as far as, when these conditions are hazardous. Like, I know we have talked about this before and about blocking off the parking lots and whatnot, but of course, that way the public is not allowed. But of course, this was a little different because we were open, which was a lot more difficult than being, trying to open and function on those conditions was a lot harder, than being
Did
closed.
court even happen then? Did they have court?
Yes, we did. On that Thursday, we did. We had
Sessions, yeah, they had
we had arraignments. We had jail arraignments. We had court, and whoever showed up in public, we saw them. And I will say this: we had a couple drive from Kentucky to pay a traffic ticket in the snowstorm. So if we are open, they will come. And then I feel like we're at risk at putting ourselves at a liability. I don't know.
We did discuss, him actually working with coinciding with this county school system's closing. I think we discussed that. I know we didn't make that into the policy, but, because the school system happens to stay closed a little longer
Yes.
than normal. And I understand why he opened it back up when he did, because of payroll. That was his main push, to get payroll
Which,
done.
I mean, and we may not have another snowstorm like this in
That was a
in
10
another
yeah,
10
it was a
years. I mean, it was,
93, was that about 93? when
The
the-
92,
blizzard,
93.
yeah.
When the girls
93.
went, when the
Yep.
girls basketball
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All-
13 inches.
Yeah, I was in Murfreesboro.
I just had a
That was
ride
easier to
off
drive
Kelly.
on than this was. though.
Surprise.
Yeah.
It was rough.
This was a
It
once in
rough.
my lifetime.
Yeah, it was rough.
This happened, and that's why I asked for the money for Benton, is to get him a bigger salt barn, rather than to do that. I will make a motion that we accept this as is, if you're good with it.
that's fine.
That's my motion.
My main thing was I just kind
I
of.
do have a request, though, that we speak to Rural Solid Waste, that Rennie would know that he is to call the mayor if we do close, because Rennie has to clean all of the convenience centers, because he's like your parking lot.
Sure.
People can't come in and put their garbage away until that's cleaned up. And he only has one backhoe. So, and there's 11 or 13 convenience centers, so Rennie's usually up and running by the next day.
I think this needs to go out, if it's approved, to every department.
Yes.
To be given to every current employee, so they know.
And I think too, it's important for.
That's a good, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Any revision goes.
Yeah, Heather always sends those out. I think for department heads to, like, if you're in my situation, to communicate with the mayor and, make sure you get that clearance. But,
May I speak to what the libraries experienced
Sure.
during that week? The libraries have employees, part-time employees that are teenagers. And so the libraries were closed that whole week because, well, part of the reason was because of the teenagers. And they weren't going to put 16-year-olds at risk of driving, let alone some of those 16-year-olds called and said, Mom won't let me go. And so, and also knowing a lot of young people come to the library, so for liability reasons, the libraries closed during that time for, both because of the staff and because of the patrons. And so if there was something in the policy that could be put in there, I mean, if the libraries were able to operate during that time, like the school systems, that would take care of the staff during that time, because both directors, my understanding is both directors were concerned about the safety of the patrons, safety of the staff, and liability for the county. Those were the big reasons that they stayed closed the whole time. And both directors, they themselves were coming every day just to check on the parking lot, as Courtney talked about sliding into the parking lot, and just so they checked on it, and it was still unsafe for anyone to be there, even on Friday, I believe, for both of them. So
And I think by this, just being able to contact the mayor and him
Yeah,
giving an
clarity,
okay.
clarity
Yeah.
from the mayor, I
Yes.
think is important to, yeah.
You can't say this department can work, but this department doesn't. I mean, we were here, so that's the issue. You have employees that can make it in, and you have employees that can't. And this covers both of that. If you make special arrangements with this department, you're gonna affect employee morale awful, because they're gonna find out, well, they didn't work, but I had to be here. They didn't have to take time off. I mean, no offense to anyone.
No, I mean, I get that. It's just I couldn't, I'm so big, there's no way I could have functioned as a whole. I may have had 2 people in one of my departments, but nobody in another. So I couldn't open as a whole. So it created a huge issue for me, because I was like, I don't, and I can't be everywhere trying to fill in, it was, and we did open up for court. So it was a whole, it was a whole thing. Yeah.
But doesn't this fix your issue? Because it says if you can't open, they know they have
Yes,
to take their.
absolutely. Yeah,
Same way with
100%.
the
Yes,
library.
yes.
But I don't
another
understand
issue,
why that happens, because it's already in the budget to be paid. And some people don't have leave time.
Are you talking about part-time
No,
employees?
as far as,
Well, I'm talking about part-time, I'm talking about full-time people too. Some people,
if part-time doesn't work, they
they
just
don't get paid. Yeah, there was, the judge's secretaries, they're both part-time. They did not get paid during that time if they were scheduled to work.
and we usually have, in our policy, we've kind of tweaked it, but we always went by whether the county and city schools were closed. Because, it's kind of like you were saying earlier, if they don't think it's safe to get out on the road with their children and their school buses, who am I to say you have to come to work? But what our department is upset about is people had to use leave that they didn't really have it. They had to use all their sick time, all their leave. And we don't understand if that's already in the budget, why you can't get paid. Like Miss Amanda was saying, I went up to the library nearly every day, except that first day. But, I went up there to check on things, and I was in constant communication with my staff. I can't get out of my driveway, my mom won't let me, and so, I understand it all, but what we don't understand is why we can't be paid when that's already in the budget, So where is all that pay gonna go? It's gonna go back to the county, right?
Now, the days that the county was closed, everybody did get paid.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was
Well,
a
I
decision.
contacted the mayor, I sent emails to Sam saying that I couldn't get people were still stuck. I mean, I don't know if y'all know the back roads, but I don't wanna be driving on Noah Road.
Now, there were some people in my office when we opened and they couldn't come. They did use their
Sick
their
days.
leave time. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And mine too. I mean, I had one that lived in town that could make it, and one that lived out
In the county.
towards the
that couldn't
county,
make it.
they couldn't make it, so. I mean, it's just, it's the employee's decision on safety.
You said
Well, we're
something
kinda
earlier.
like her, we don't have
Where's
just
going to?
2 or 3 people in our office. We have, you know, I have 16
Eventually, we're
people
gonna have
on
to
my
talk about
staff,
Work from home,
you know.
we don't have a policy on that. So technically, we're not
Yeah.
supposed to do it.
I get it, I'm a small office, I can only speak to what I know. I can't answer that for y'all, y'all have a lot more employees.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, this kind
Yeah.
of,
I would not want the high school student to
Right.
drive.
Other than
I
I
mean-
mean,
you're not having enough staff to
I
open the office.
close, we close
no.
a whole lot longer than anybody else.
I don't-
But I'm out
Fix that.
every day in it, cause he depends on me to send him pictures. So I'm out all over the county, and this was bad this time. I hope it's a once in a lifetime deal. On the other hand, you have people who work at factories who have to go to work. And if they don't go to work, they don't get paid. And I guess it's that way when the mayor closes everybody down. Yes, you do get paid. When he opens back up and you can't come, then you have to use your due diligence for yourself. Am I willing to wreck my new car? No. And stay home and, you know,
Well, you know,
and I know that's not what you're looking for.
no, but I'm taking that a little step further is that is forcing somebody
To make a choice.
to make a choice,
Yes.
and if they come in, or who's gonna pay for their car, who's gonna
They
pay for
will.
this?
It's
You
on
know?
them. It's your
Right.
responsibility. I guess like me. If I wreck my truck out looking at the roads on the county, I'm not gonna get reimbursed by Coffee County Schools. I know that.
Well,
I
that's not
drive-
right, because you're out there working.
Well, they're not gonna pay for my truck.
Well,
I mean,
I eat it.
go get a county truck.
every,
It's not four-wheel drive.
no,
and then I
no
would
matter
cost you-
what,
Go around
no
and
matter
around
what
and
job
around
you
all
have,
this.
you have to make that determination.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody that's working from 18 to 65
Yeah.
has to make that determination.
And hopefully it won't happen again. I mean, it's been like
Yeah.
he said, 1993 when Lauren was born, was the 13 inches of snow. So that's been 31 years.
Shout out to our basketball girls
Yes.
basketball team, by the way.
I think the clarification on this policy is great moving forward. What about this incident? Because we didn't have that clear policy. It was not clear because in previous years, we were able to pay our employees. That's the issue I think Polly's trying to highlight is that we were basing it off of history, off of our experience. We'd always been able to do this. The policy that was amended in September was not clear enough for us to understand that they would be in that situation. So we only found out about it after the fact. So this is great moving forward,
Okay.
but our employees still went without pay unknowingly. If I had been able to open, there were employees that could have made it in. There were employees who would have chosen to stay home and
You're gonna have to do it
bit
for
that
every
bullet.
department.
But there were employees who would have found a way to make it in so that they could get paid, and I didn't give them that choice. The road was unsafe to drive. We have 2 stop signs before you get to our library. You couldn't stop at those stop signs. They were a slide. It was not safe, and so Polly and I decided we would be closed based on, we assumed people would get paid. This is great moving forward, as I said, but I'm concerned that my people didn't get paid, and that was my fault.
Well, so the policy prior to stated that the mayor could have administrative closings. Did y'all get approval to be closed?
I didn't really ask, I just told them we would be closed because I didn't have enough employees to open, and
You told your board or the mayor? Or
I
who?
told my board, and I emailed Sam
Okay.
on Thursday and Friday.
what in this was in the policy before, Heather?
Everything but the very last paragraph.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Okay. Well, I made a motion to accept this first.
I'll
Anybody-
second it.
Okay. Anybody got any more discussion?
And going back to that flexibility with the policy, like she could appeal, do we need to state something like that in that added place?
Well, I think contacting the county mayor,
And I know where he's coming from, so we're in discussion, I'm sure. So I know where he's coming from, 'cause we're gonna have to send this to legislative body. And once you, and.
Yeah, then once you
if we-
get in there, you tweak it.
You can either tweak it, or we tweak it now.
I'm good.
To the legislative committee or the.
Legislative committee, I mean, excuse me, sorry. And he happens to be the chair of it, so it helps him.
Well, it's
to-
our purview as
yeah.
a committee to make that decision.
Yeah, do we need to, yeah. and
So
do we
I
wanna
think it
do-
needs to be in there that if you like her or like Jenny down here, you should call the mayor. If you, and it was bad, especially with the parking lots. I mean, if we have somebody my age or older and fall and break a hip, it's bad. And that goes back to the decision, I made the choice, I know that. But still, if he could say, hey, we need to close one more day, and that was probably terrible for you, I know. And it's really ultimately up to his call. He gets to make that call, but if I'm up to anything that you want to add to that about,
Well, just an appeal.
yeah, then an
by the
appeal,
department head
a
to the
verbal,
mayor,
or a verbal or a written
call,
appeal can
just
be written to
some
the
kind of
mayor.
appeal.
I kind of like the language as submitting an appeal to the mayor. That way you have, you have something like an email or something in writing. I appeal, this and due to this situation.
And I feel
Yeah,
like-
I think that way the county has it of record that this was the situation. This is what this department head, and then he can make his decision based off of your issue that you're having or the reasoning why.
And
Yeah.
they might not even be aware in that office of what's going on in places
Yeah,
at that moment.
and I
There's
That
think
might actually help them
right.
to make a decision,
Right.
or maybe change a decision.
And then, Heather mentioned, working from home. Like, we did that during COVID. So, it never even crossed my mind. I don't know if that would be a separate policy or if this would be in conjunction with this one here, but,
Well, to simplify that, you could make that appeal when you call the
to
mayor's
be able
office.
to work from home.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the capability, our software is on our laptops. We have the capability to work from home. And we did. We had a ton of cases and reset, and we had to put all that in, case by case, reset dates. We were coming up with reset dates and dockets and what we were coming up with a plan. So, yeah, I think that's something that even if we don't look at it with this, that's something that we might need to discuss too, maybe in the future.
Do we need to have some wordage in their appeal process from the department head to the mayor?
Yeah, after
I
that.
think so. I think
Kind of, where it said there, just a suggestion, no elected official or department head has authority to close their office or deviate from regular office hours once the county mayor has lifted the administrative closing without appealing
appeal.
to the mayor. or
And I feel
without
like
appeal.
maybe the mayor
To the mayor's
needs,
office.
and maybe that needs to say a mayor approves, that appeal,
Right.
or, yeah, we have the
Without
approval.
appeal and approval.
Approval of the appeal, yeah.
So after administrative closing, we could go without appeal to, and approval of the mayor's office.
I like it.
Okay. I made the motion, I'll accept
But
that, yep.
I'll second, because I
Yeah.
mentioned it. So this would be a,
Friendly change or whatever it's called.
Friendly amendment to the
Yeah.
motion.
Okay, so you put that in there and we send that on.
So are you gonna add to the policy, what happens to the employees that are not approved to stay home?
well, this would be the,
And what was that?
So if the mayor opens it up, an employee works their 7.5 hours days, and other employees are allowed to stay at home because we don't have a work from home policy. Do those people that showed up to the office, are they just better, I mean, I don't
I
know.
do feel like, well,
I'm
as
just
far as
saying,
pay
the
goes, I
sheriff's
feel like it
department-
should be determined off of discretion. But I do feel like if, like, in my case, if we're working from home and we're closed and we're not physically, I feel like there needs to be some verbiage about us, if you're working but not physically in office. I don't.
Well, I'm just saying, sheriff's department, if the mayor closes down, they get an
And
extra
there's a
day
policy
pay.
about that.
So if my employees come to work, what you're gonna have is you're gonna have employees quit showing up on snow days because they're allowed. Well, if I just take my 7.5 hours, I'm still gonna get paid like they did staying home.
Well, that would be up to the department head.
No, it'd be up to the mayor.
Employee.
Well, but you would follow the mayor's thing unless you appealed to him to do something different, right?
And I'm not talking like a whole day. We opened up late. That was my only difference is we actually did come in, but we opened up late and we went home a little early, before dark. So we were actually technically open that day. So we're talking like 2.5 hours.
Well, we've got a motion and a second, and we've got it amended. So,
You're gonna be quiet.
So do we need to consider the pay issue with that too? Or just leave it up to the appeals product? We've already got something in place for the emergency workers and the law enforcement.
That's what I'm saying. Are you gonna add employees that come to work that day to that policy?
I think if there's 2 or 3 people appealing.
Well, like if you had, like you say, you had the library
Maybe
that wasn't
2
able to
o'clock.
open at all, due to not being able to have people come in, so they're not able to open at all. So,
How about
do they have the capability? So then my question is, you have the capability of working at home? I feel like if the mayor is opening the administrative offices, do you have the capability of working from home? Can you say that you work from home? If you don't have that capability, then I think then
That's not fair to all the county
Why don't we
employees,
just
because
go
not
ahead
everybody
and
can work from
approve
home.
this and work on the exceptions,
Leave the appeal out. Leave the appeal
because
out.
I don't think we're gonna have an administrative closing anytime soon.
no.
So why don't we just go ahead and approve this as it is, and
Okay.
then work on.
I'll
the
remove the
exceptions.
That's
friendly
fine.
amendment.
Well-
All right, so we got a
It's just
second,
like
motion and a
movies, you
second.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Motion
Motion
and a second.
accepted as printed.
I-
Snowball, I mean, just
As printed.
Yeah.
Motion and a second as printed.
with the
No
appeal.
snowball.
Without the appeal.
All those in favor?
Without the appeal.
As printed.
Alright.
We're going
All in
back
favor
to-
say
All right.
aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tim.
All right, now, since this was vague, I would like to make a motion to send to Budget and Finance to look at the people who were not paid that stayed home because of closings, not because they chose to, but because the library was closed and what else was closed? Can we afford to pay them for those days? Or give them comp time or something, come up with a compensation for the people who at the time were closed, but now they found out they had to use sick days because we didn't have a policy in place, or we didn't have this new policy in place that specifies what they're supposed to do. Can Budget and Finance look to see if they can be reimbursed in some way? That's my motion.
Does anybody know how many employees that is?
I mean, we'd have to pull time sheets, I don't know. We should just
For
have to
my
pull time
library,
sheets.
we have it in our budget, we just didn't get to pay them, so it's already in the budget now.
I understand that, but it's gotta go through them before it's
Right.
done.
Right.
Because we're still adhering to the policy before. I'm just seeing if there's any gray matter in there with them. If I can get a second.
oh, I'm gonna second it,
Now we can talk.
because I'm gonna be on that, I'm on the Budget and Finance,
Okay.
because, I think it's right to be able to pay them. especially since they have it in their budget already.
And there really wasn't a strict standard to follow at the time. Now that when this passes in April, there will be a strict standard to follow.
But I know when the mayor sits there and opens the office back up and you don't go, there's gonna be an issue with it. That ain't no different than any place else in the United States. If you don't show, you ain't getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, I feel
If
like
they
that,
say
that,
they're
that was
open-
where it, I mean, he did, when he announced it, he did say at the employee's discretion, he did say that. So it was employee discretion.
And that's gonna have to be, you know, I understand we have young adults working at your facilities, okay? But it's no different than anywhere else. If they decide they can't get there, they can't get there. They're not gonna get paid if it's been opened. I mean, every place I've ever worked in, I've worked at a lot of places, TVA, out at the base, and all over the place, and they've all been that way. If you can't get to work, you're not getting paid. Or you used your sick days, or your leave. And, because I can tell you right now, Air Force Base didn't shut down. They don't shut down because it snowed. You showed up or you didn't. Yeah, you showed up or you didn't get paid. A lot of people was late, but they still clocked in. Once they clocked in, they were on the clock. But that's the way it works with base.
Well, we got a clear
Yeah, we got a path to go by, and I think we're gonna.
the other stuff.
It may not come back up again in our time.
That is
But
Hope
I
it
do
doesn't.
agree with you. Yeah, I think they should get paid. I mean, it's in your budget. But we'll just have to work, we'll just have to take that in consideration, and work it out. See what we can do for them.
All right, so are we done with discussion for now? Okay, all right. I've got down for our next meeting to be Monday, April 15th, at 5 p.m.
Okay.
All right.
Tax day.
Oh,
Isn't that tax day? Yeah, it is.
I'm afraid it is.
I'm running somewhere.
And so can we get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the
to-
motion.
There you go.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Say aye.
If you don't wanna stand up, then.
Stand up.
Yep. And once they're staying there seated, you can stay and have your own.
That was.
Seconded the motion to ask Budget and Finance.
Me? Tim made the motion.
Tim made the motion.
Hirschman, he said.